show out of my body. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well this evening on this lovely. How many days into quarantine are we, James?
Oh, I'm 50 days into quarantine.
Okay, so on this lovely 50 days into quarantine, I hope everyone's doing well. We've got James Lee Nathan 3. Some people like to call him by his nickname, which is JLN3.
Hey,
He is an excellent author. He's had many books, nine books 12 books altogether, 9 of which are all fiction, and 2 are historical fiction, right?
yeah.
Which are some that I love, because I'm a Melvina fan. So one of them is Melvina, which is a historical, I'm going to call it a recreation to historical fiction that tells the story by, of course, putting in fictitious dialogue, because we had no way of knowing that the dialogue existed, to kind of rebuild the scene and rebuild Melvina's life. And I love it. I love it. And, I kind of think, if you don't mind, James, I'd love to start with Melvina and
Okay.
how you came up with that and how you even got into that to begin with.
Oh, it's a good story. So I was on a date with a woman named Sharon Downing, and this is our first time meeting each other, and we're sitting down in Rockville, and having tapas and some drinks, and she's asking me about all my books, right? And so I'm going on, oh, I'm so great, I'm so good, I'm so lovely, yeah. And then I look at her and she's like, well, I've got something to say, or I've got a story as well. I'm like, okay, go right ahead. So I ordered another round, and she commences to tell me this story about her 3 times great grandmother. And I was floored. Like, what? This is a real person? I mean, seriously? And she was like, yep.
And, so this is her great grandmother? Is that what you said?
Yes.
His date's great grandmother.
Great. Yeah. Okay.
And the looking at Sharon, it lent credence to the story, because looking at her at first blush, you would not know she. And her grandmother, Melvina, was she could pass for black. Matter of fact, pass for white. That's what she did most of her life. On a couple of census reports, they have her listed as white.
Wow.
So yeah, she it fit the bill for her being a madam in Fargo, North Dakota. So she goes to, I have no idea how a black woman got to Fargo, North Dakota, but she got there, and she ran brothels, and she was very prominent in the region, Red River Valley, between Minnesota, North and South Dakota, and but that wasn't where she made her money. She made her money bootlegging. That's what she went to jail for. In fact, there's only 2 people in the history of North Dakota who have ever went to jail for bootlegging. And the last one they convicted was Melvina in 1901.
That's so wild.
Yeah, because all throughout Prohibition, no one was ever arrested for bootlegging. And North Dakota was a dry state back then. It came in as a dry state, so there could be no booze. So she made a lot of money smuggling and selling booze wholesale. And she did that because 3 miles to the east was Moorhead, Minnesota. It was 3 miles from Fargo, and Moorhead, Minnesota was it had 400 bars and pubs. So I mean, and if you look at Moorhead now, you're like, Really? That's what that must have, there's not 400 buildings here. Bars and saloons at the time. And you could buy your booze, drink your booze in Moorhead, and then come over to Fargo because that's where prostitution was legal. And have your fun in Fargo. And so that's what people did. But Melvina, and a lot of this is, speculation, but we've got a lot of research to back it up. Melvina was there as Fargo became a state. So she was there at the beginning, and she knew the kind of conditions that were going to be there toward 1889 when statehood approached. So she more or less just parlayed, her connections and started smuggling booze into Minnesota to sell to all these bars. One key fact that we found out was that there's a place called Rat Portage. It's in Canada. It's called Pinot. And that place is historical for one reason and one reason only: smuggling. That's where all the people who were smugglers that were bringing in booze from Canada, non-taxed, into the states during Prohibition. That's one of the routes they took.
Wow.
And and so this is only, Melvina dies in 1911. So Prohibition comes in about 10 years later. So this is only 10 years after her. And we're leveraging the same routes, smoking booze into Minnesota, as well as into the states, coming into Detroit as well, I would think. So, yeah. So there's a lot of different things, aspects about Melvina.
Yeah, you did it, and I think that's me. That weird noise, like Satan. You guys hear it, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry that Satan is hiding in my room, but it doesn't surprise me after the day I've had. So, with that said, I do want to go ahead and pull up a picture of the 3 of the books that you have out, and Melvina is one in this series. I just want to go ahead and pull that up here.
I cannot wait to read Melvina. It sounds fascinating.
It's a really awesome book here, and I'm just whoops, didn't mean to do that one. Meant to do this one. But I delved into it, and what I remember best about it is, so James is a really descriptive writer. He has a lot of really good details into, and what's really wild is, like, are you sure you weren't there with her somehow, James? Because that's what I feel like when I read Melvina. I was like, and it took me a minute because I would read it, and it took me like probably about a month because I'm like all over the place, as everybody knows. And I would read it, and I would come back, and that's the thing. Like, even if I left it for a week, I still had it because it was so descriptive. I come back, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember this. Yeah, let's get back into this. And her life, and you write such a great perspective. A woman's perspective. You did a really good job at capturing Melvina.
Yeah, that wasn't my intent, I swear. I wasn't trying to write it from a woman's, mindset or thought process. But
you capture her, and
yeah,
you must have channeled it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I channeled it, and I do so much research up front. And so the more that the family told me that what they could share with me about her, and the more I read about her, character traits started to emerge. And so I said, I can leverage this, I can leverage that. The historical record on Melvina lent itself to paint her in a certain way. And she was the epitome of an independent woman, an entrepreneur. In 1870s, if I was to tell you that a Black woman kept a lawyer on retainer, you would be like, what? Man, how does that happen? Any woman, let alone a black woman.
Yeah.
And that was Melvina. She had a lawyer on retainer. And that helped her in the initial cases that we found in D.C. Circuit Court.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Where Melvina was a plaintiff in a couple of, well, she was a plaintiff and a defendant in a couple of things. So this man, I always get his initial, he's got these two initials, and then it's a P, and then his last name is Davis, okay? His last name is Davis, right? So he's dating Melvina, and Melvina is not living in the DMV. She's not living in DC. To the best of our knowledge, she was living in Chicago at the time. That's the best we could find out, and we're just speculating on that. But he was visiting her, and he left to come back to DC. She finds out that he marries another woman while he's in DC. Okay, she commences to send snail mail, hateful, vindictive letters to this woman, harassing her. And I'm assuming because Davis decides he wants to go to court, cease and desist. He wants to sue her to make her stop, right? And so she's served with the papers. Melvina comes all the way back to DC to have her day in court. Right? The judge hears both sides, and he decides, you know what, you figure this out amongst yourself, right? And so it was not decided. He wanted them to settle this out of court. Well, the very next week, Melvina sues Mr. Davis for, okay, because he said he was going to marry her. So she took him to court and sued him. Woman scorned. So she does this, and that case is decided. It's in her favor, but they never disclose how much she was awarded. In North Dakota, a woman who was writing a blog about Melvina and about the red light district had surmised that Melvina won $5,000,
which was
right?
a chunk back then.
Well, that's a huge chunk of money. That's around 150,000 now, you know. But we could never find anything in any kind of record that said what she won. And also, Davis wasn't that rich. So if anything, she might have gotten $50, not $5,000. So we were, we weren't believing much of that. We knew she won, but weren't court settlement was. But it turns out Mr. Davis is the father of the first African American U.S. Army general.
Oh, wow.
Benjamin O. Davis. That's his father. And Benjamin O. Davis is the father of the first Air Force general, Benjamin O. Davis Jr. So therein you have Melvina and how history goes along in that regard. And we never knew what she looked like because I find this hard to believe, but there's no pictures of her anywhere.
Wow.
None.
You had said that before, but I'm like you, like it's still a marvel to me that.
Yeah, I can't believe it. There's a bar in DC, and it was owned originally by this Madden, and I think Nellie's is the bar, and it's known for its drag queen. Okay, and when you walk into the bar, there's a I would say about 4-foot portrait of Nellie, and it dates back to the 1890s. And I said to myself then, I said, this is why I know there's a picture of Melvina somewhere, because she had this huge brothel, which was the talk of that Red River Valley, called the Crystal Palace. And she's an alpha female If you're all that, when you walk into that brothel, you're more than likely going to see a huge portrait of the madam in charge. So that was I know there's something somewhere. Even her arrest record doesn't have a picture, and they were taking pictures at that time in 1901. They were taking pictures when folks. So we just we throw our hands up because somebody checked out the record and they never brought it back. So now we're like, we know there's somewhere, and family is scouring because there's aunts and uncles in their late 80s and 90s who are still around that may not have that picture from somewhere. Elvina.
So wild though, and so yes, first of all I want to say to anybody who's watching, you really should take the time, go get the book. It's on every format. Take the time and do that. I promise you, you will not be disappointed in that. If you like history, this is better than history because he's rebuilt her life, and so by using these points of reference, and it's really cool. Honestly, I would rate you up there pretty high. Like I think you're I know people know you're out there, but not as many as should know that you're out there. I think you should be in one of the top 10 writers.
Oh, really?
Really do. Oh yeah, I enjoy your stuff. I'm surprised. Like sometimes I'm like, why isn't he rubbing elbows with Stephen? Even though it's not the same genre, but Stephen King.
Yeah.
You have that creativity, and it's very enjoyable. And some of your stuff, like some of your, you got some sci-fi fiction and stuff. Well, I'm calling it sci-fi, but some futuristic stuff. But you really have some, and I'll be honest, I haven't got through them all. I haven't got through them, and I need to.
Yeah, that would be an amazing movie.
Yeah. Yes, Melvina. Yes. 100%. I did the same thing, didn't I?
Yes.
The same thing.
It would make a hilarious. Here's another thing that I share with folks. There's a lot of information in there if you're trying to research your own genealogy. I give all kinds of insights on how to go back and find your own family, to research your family. And so if people get it for that alone, their takeaways will be tremendous in nailing down, how you got to where you got to,
I'm trying to mute us in between if you. So I want to ask. There's something I've never asked you. What was your favorite book out of your books to write?
It was Ibrahim Unites. It was Ibrahim Unites because that took me a few years to write. Usually I can write a book in about 6 months. It took me a few years to write Ibrahim Unites. It started off as a short story called Are There No More Dragon Warriors? And within that short story, I reference another historical figure that a lot of people don't know about, Deputy U.S. Marshal Bass Reeves, who was he was the epitome of the Western sheriff, Western marshal, the Western lawman. That was Bass Reeves. He arrested over 3,000 convicts. And he only killed 10 people, but he had death threats on his life all throughout the Indian Territory. And Bass Reeves was around the same time as Melvina. They both died within the same year as well. So they were contemporaries. And it's amazing to me, there was more written about Melvina that we could research on than ever I could find on Bass Reeves for the time. So, it amazes me. But so I'm writing a short story and, I'm playing around with it. This is 2008, 2009. And my 8-year-old, she picks it up on my iPad, and she's reading it. And she asked me, hey, Dad, are you ever going to finish this book? And I was like, oh, I'm glad you like it. I didn't write it for a kid, but I'm glad you like it. And okay. So I started, messing around with it some more, and I said, okay, let me go ahead on and finish it. So I get through with the first book, and then I realized that, well, this is actually a different tale than I started off to be. So I said, I'm not ready to. I'll publish this, but I'm not really finished with it. So I started tinkering with it some more, and another thought came into my head about how I wanted to transition this story, and that's where Ibrahim Unites comes in, and being that Ibrahim is the uniter of all these races of people from different planets and such. And when I tell people, it's the story of us, okay, of how we came to be. It's a reason why we look up when we pray, okay. It's a reason why we have people that could be from thousands of miles apart, yet look the same and similar. Yeah. And so this flies in the face of anything that you may have had, any preconceptions you may have had about religion, about politics, about the human nature of things. And I wanted to write something like that, and also to give people hope. Yeah. So I finally finished the book. Finally finish it. Get it done. Publish it. Yeah, done. Then I realized that, oh, I left an important part out because I started getting feedback from people who were reading it, and they were like, well, who is this guy? I want to know more about him. Zion Rivers, who's the old sage. He's the Gandalf in all of this. And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to write more about Zion. I got to give him some depth. So that was a whole entire book. It was a prequel, or so to speak. And that was the origin tale of the Dragon Warriors, who were called the Alan Day. And so I had to write that book. But there was a gap. When I went back to reading the book, and I said, oh, there's a gap in here. There's another gap.
So you got to write another book.
Yeah, I had to write another book to fill this gap, and that's called Crime Fighters. And so I take you to the origins of how they became in and how they came to Earth. I take you through that. Then I give you all this stuff that's happens in the future, past that, and then I take you to present day with the crime fighters, and so you get all of that together. And
it needs to be a movie trilogy.
yeah. I was approached, and I actually pitched the book Ibrahim Unites. I pitched it to Netflix. I got my 30-second elevator pitch. And I had the first 2 seasons all scoped out in a treatment, and I gave it to them, and they liked it. They liked it. They liked it a lot and said it needed some more development, but they liked it. They put me in touch with a screenwriter who had worked with this director before, and he took a look at it. And we were only supposed to talk for maybe about 20 minutes or so. He wanted to look over a manuscript, and he's 20 minutes or so. And so he's looking over the actual origin tale manuscript, and he has a million questions about all kinds of things. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, every time I ask you a question, you fill it in with something else that I don't know anything about. And so this is about an hour in. We're an hour in on what's supposed to be a 20-minute call. And I tell him, I says, have you read Ibrahim Unites? I mean, the actual book? He said, there's a book? I said, yes, there's a book. I said, what you're reading is the prequel. It's the origin tale. He was like, oh, well, send me the book. So, I send him the book, and, and he says, well, when you send me the book, tell me, what part of the book should I focus in on, and what would actually be the best to launch a series on? And I said, there's 3 different areas of the book you actually could launch from, but if you're going to launch from anywhere, I would start with the father and his 2 daughters. I said, if you start there, you've got a veteran, you've got PTSD, you've got the father whose wife is he's a widower. You've got all of this going on, and he has to find out why he's special. So I said, you got enough there. And then it's not really the father. His whole purpose was to bring the girls to someone else. I said, so you got all that. So I said, go with it. And that was in 2016. So after everybody's gotten everything off their plate, I got another phone call about a week ago and said, hey, we want to talk to you again about this. So we'll see how that goes. I always keep my fingers crossed, but I'd rather pitch him Melvina, if anything.
Yeah, Melvina's got my heart, but that's still the other series. That's still very cool. That's a great concept. And those are one of the reasons why I'm so surprised that a lot more people. You've done pretty well.
I've done okay. And here's something. Someone asked me. They said, well, why do you write? And I said, I don't write to make money. I don't write to make money. I write because I like to tell stories. And the whole purpose of me writing was to get those stories out of my head, and I would always tell my daughter's stories as I was driving them to school and taking them on errands. I'm always telling stories to them. So I started just to write them down. And I've got a whole slew of still more up there, but I just wanted to share that. So to me, if you're writing it, if your purpose or your intent is to, well, I'm going to pitch this book and I'm going to make money, well then, that's going to come out in the wash eventually. That you're only trying to make money. You know
it. I know you're good at this. Still, if you're getting into writing to make money, that's just not the place to do it. You have to love it, don't you?
Exactly, because I write fiction. That's the hardest thing, and science fiction at that. That's the hardest thing to break into. Hard. But I think people who talk, like for instance, for you, for Max Impact, that's a different thing. That's real. That's nonfiction, and that's what sells. A lot of people don't realize do-it-yourself, self-help, true crime stories, all that stuff sells way more than fiction. Way more than fiction.
Now, Don, did you have a question for him? I thought I heard you ask him the.
No, I was just making a comment about doing like some of your life purpose and doing it for money. Kind of it takes the authenticity out of your work and the whole passion behind the reason that you're writing or whatever it is you're doing goes away. The magic of it goes away. So if you do it like these 2 books that you're talking about, they're so authentic. You could have never done that, I don't think, with money behind your back. Like, no. I'm going to make a bunch of money off of it.
Yeah, and it would have came through, but now I will take some money though.
Now that we're on the other side of it,
I will take some money though.
But it can never be the backstory of it.
No.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And there's another thing I wanted to ask you about. So where did you draw the inspiration for your love scenes in your books?
Well, you're looking away when you say that.
Well, I'm an immature love scene.
She's 16 all of a sudden.
Yeah. it's a lot of life experiences as well. But you know,
Let's all go to James's house.
yeah, really. I have a, I have, I have a vivid imagination as well, so it helps. But I've I've lived a full life. I can tell you. I can tell you. But one thing I've never done, okay, is uh, I had to write a, a scene between two men, right? And it was very. I said, I don't know, and what goes on? I don't know how this feels. And so, you know what I did? So I call Enzo.
That's what I was gonna ask. I swear I was getting ready to ask you if you called it. So
So I call Enzo and I say, "Hey, don't think it's weird." And he said, "Oh, well, I'm already thinking it's weird now." And so I said, "Okay, I'm trying to write this scene, and what the protagonist is receiving oral from another man, and I don't. How do I tell that? How do I describe that?" He says, "Well, have you ever received oral?" And I says, "Yes." He goes, "Well, same thing.
pretty simple.
Same thing. It's pretty simple." And he says, and then he goes, "Anal, same thing. Pretty simple." And I said, "You know what? Here I am." I said, "I didn't mean to be a Puritan, but here I am." I said, "You know what? Thank you for making me, realize that at the end of the day, it's just two people and it's just sex. So, and you have to describe what's going on in that scene, uh, what the two people are feeling, and you got to use the senses. I try to use the senses. What's going on in the background? What do you hear? Some smells, the sight, the situation within the room. What does it take place? I try to set the stage for all of that so that you're right there immersed in the actual act. And then, boom, you go from there. I mean, I like to, one reader told me, she said, I felt like I was there, and that made me feel very uncomfortable. And why is that? Why in the world was that? And she said, I'm flying at 35,000 feet in the air, and I'm there in this scene, and I let out a sigh, and I'm sure everybody heard me. And I was like, okay. So yeah.
I'm still laughing. I'm 16. I'm 16. I can't help myself. Um, so there was that. So I got that question out. That was the hard one. So your inspiration altogether. Did you know how soon in your life did you know that you wanted to write books?
Wow. I'd say when I was in when I was in seventh grade. When I was in seventh grade.
Wow.
Yeah. And because I loved creative writing, okay, and I was an artist. I like to draw, and so I went to the High School of Art and Design in New York City, Midtown, and I majored in comic illustration, comic art. So as part of that, you have to write. You have to write about these characters. You have to write about these fantabulous worlds and stuff. So that just fed into everything else that I was doing. So and that's how I started writing. Oh, as part of that, being a child of the 70s, and school is on 2nd Avenue and 51st Street, 52nd Street. The headquarters for Marvel Comics was on Madison Avenue at the time. And we would cut school, right, and go up to Marvel, and demand to see Stan Lee. Okay, this is, you got Asian, Italian, Greek, you got black, a whole slew of different kids, right? And we're there. Oh, we did this for about, I want to say we did this for about 3 weeks. The secretary finally said, okay, he's busy, right? And he happened to be in his office. And what does Stanley do? He comes to the door of his office and he looks at us and he goes, okay, I'm gonna sit one at a time, right? And so we're like, what? And so we all go in, right? And he looks over our stuff because we're art students, we carry our portfolios around with us everywhere. So, looking at our artwork, and he's talking to us individually. He spent no more maybe 5-10 minutes with each one of us. And, and then talked to us about the industry and everything else, gave us some sage wisdom and sent us back on to school. But what he gave for me was something I never forgot. And so he looked at my artwork and he says, well, what do you, I see this stuff on the side. What is this? And I said, oh, well, that's the story. I always write the story out before I go ahead and draw it. He goes, oh, okay. And so he's reading, I can see him, he's poring over it and he's reading and he's like, my advice to you is don't ever stop writing. And that was it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's good advice. That was good advice. I'm glad you took it.
Oh yeah. It took a while, but yeah.
But you got there, yeah.
I had to live life first.
I've ever told you my Stanley, my first encounter with Stanley.
Whoa.
So I killed him off in an article on accident.
What?
Yeah. I put the late Stan Lee, so he went out of his way to contact me and make me aware that he was not dead.
Not dead yet, darling.
Yeah, dude, you said that's exactly what he said. Was I'm not dead yet. So I was like, yeah, that was embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. It's not the first time he'd been killed off, though.
Yeah, that was what he told. That's actually what he told the source. He was like, this is the first time, but just so that you know, don't start internet rumors, MJ.
Exactly.
Oh, so anyway, what is the outlook for the future of JLN3 Productions? What's that look like? What are we looking for in the future?
Well, I've got 4 projects that I'm doing. I need to finish those. And then what I'm going to do after that is everything that I have that's an ebook, I'm going to turn that into an actual print edition, paperback. And but that's about it. I think after these next 4 that I do, that'll probably be it. I might do maybe 1 or 2 after that, but that'll be it because what I'm going to do within that is to take these and then just start writing screenplays for them, for everything.
Okay, that's where I was wondering. I was like, when's he gonna go there? That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah.
Have you wrote any children's books? Children's books?
I've never thought about that. I probably could do a few good ones. I would probably do something for adolescents on depression. Something
that
with
would be a great one. Yeah.
There needs to be more of that.
Your drawings with the way it sounds like you. I haven't read your stuff yet, but the two together, that combination always makes a great children's illustrated book.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I'm thinking to myself, because my youngest daughter, the one who got me onto this kick again 12, 13 years ago, her thing is to be an early education teacher, right? So I might do that to help her, as she's going, to write different things for her to hand out in her classes, right? her students. So yeah, that's something I might look into.
Yeah, cool. I love children's books. I have a granddaughter that's almost 2, and that's our thing to do is, sit and look at books and tell stories. I just make up stuff out of my head most of
There
the
you
time.
go.
You ever make it
Illustrated books are great.
child's book?
Anyway,
Do you ever make it juicy, like embellish the child's book? It's over. You're like, and then they lived happily ever after, but they bought a monster truck.
yeah, oh yeah.
So, James, how much did living in New York City as a child inspire some of the writing?
Oh my goodness. It's in everything I write. There's some kind of reference to New York City. Oh, but I've lived in London. Okay. I've worked in Seoul, right? I've visited Tokyo on multiple occasions. So yeah, I like to have a nice city to be a centerpiece for different things. But one thing that I do that I don't a lot of authors are kind of lazy when they write, and they don't I have to go to that place or have been there. I have to go there. I wrote a scene in the Robert Manus book, and it talks about where he's in Annapolis, right? And I'd had been to Annapolis on a million different occasions, but to write this scene, I actually had to go to Annapolis and walk some of the narrow alleys at night just to get that feel of what it was. And yeah. I find that that's one of those things that I can't abide by. If you're writing about Dubai and you're talking about Dubai, but at least go to Dubai or at least have some pictures and research about Dubai. Don't talk about Dubai and say you've been. It doesn't make any sense. It won't make sense to people to say, "Hey, you went 30 miles in the next scene." So I try to keep as much as realistic as possible, so that if a person who's from that area reads the book, oh, yeah, they're immediately familiarized with everything I'm talking about in the scene.
So did you go to Fargo?
To where?
Did you go to Fargo?
No.
I
didn't go to Fargo.
Oh.
I didn't go to Fargo. One of the family researchers,
mm-hmm.
he had went, and he did videos of the trip. I used a lot of that, but I have been to towns around that time period. So I've been to Tombstone, right? And so I had that in the back of my mind. And I've been to Golden, Colorado as well. Has a nice old area. So I had that in my head. And I'd been to the Buffalo Bill Museum in Golden, Colorado. And I've touched the weapons that they use that he shot with, the 6-shooter, Peacemaker. So I've had those. I've looked at a bison. I've looked at bisons, stuffed, of course. And I've also been to these places where they're actually roaming free. So I had an idea of what this was. And so it made it easier for me to kind of visualize the street and what was going on. And then doing a hell of a lot of reading about the Old West in the Victorian age, that period. Very dirty. No matter what you see on TV in the movies, it was just dirty. It was just dirty. Dirt everywhere.
Nobody wants to go to Fargo. That's the reality. Oh, we lost Donna Sue. Are you still? Oh. She'll be back. She will be back. Nobody wants to go to Fargo, so that's okay. I'm kidding. If anybody, let's see. Wait, it looks like she's coming back. We got her back. There she is. Now she's the star. Look, she's at the bottom. And I don't, I know that I know we got to be kind of careful, but right now with everything going on in the world, uh, you know, with you being from New York City, I know that you're seeing everything that's going on. I mean, and you've seen that a lot. Of course, on television. I mean, do you have any thoughts? Do you prefer not to address that, or do you have any thoughts about what you could tell people from your experience about the reality of the situation? I think a lot of people don't believe it's happening, and it's
Yeah,
it is. So I
yeah,
mean, do you
yeah.
have anything you would care to say about that?
I would say this, because I've lost family members, and I've lost lifelong friends uh, because of this virus. Um, I would say this: everything in life, in the world as we get it, we have to, always uh, be mindful of the sources, the source material, as well as your own mind. Okay, and I always challenge folks. I says, you know what? Look it up for yourself. Research it yourself. Um, it's a virus, and we have no immunity to it. It can wreak total havoc on you or nothing at all. You know, uh, I had the mumps. Wasn't no big deal to me. My brother had the mumps. We thought he was going to die, and that's the nature of these things. So I tell folks, hey, just research it on your own, um, and keep that in mind that we don't have any immunity to it, so it's going to affect different people different ways, especially the elderly. We know it's going to hurt them, and we know it's going to hurt the people suffering from. Oh, she dropped out.
Yeah.
Diabetes, obesity, uh,
Mhm.
you know, uh,
I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble, James Lee. I'm chubby.
compromised immune systems. I mean,
Sorry.
these are all things that can happen. So you
Mhm.
have to be careful. Uh, I like what Hogan has done.
Me too.
Basically said, hey, you know what? We're going to do this, and we're going to do it this way, and we're going to keep our numbers down, and then boom, we're going to start reopening things up, and we'll see how it goes. But if you're not testing anyone, I mean, I've got insurance, right? And folks have insurance, but people who don't have insurance, they can't get a test.
Right.
You can't get a test. You can't afford one.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and dad, they're in Birmingham, Alabama, and they haven't. I mean, Alabama hasn't had a big outbreak, but they offer testing, right? If you have insurance. So she had her card. Dad went in. They got tested, but there were no other black folk there. And she was telling me, and I said, that's probably because they don't have insurance. I mean, when you think about it, if your employer provides you with insurance, health,
Mm-hmm.
and you're unemployed, you don't have any health care, you know? So that's where that is. So, at the end of the day, we're gonna make it through this. Uh, Things are going to be a lot different. Uh, I compare it to 9/11 in that regard because 9/11 changed a lot of the way we live.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
People did. I mean, my kids. I said, you know what? I says we used to sit on airplanes, and you'd actually get food on airplanes, and they'd actually give you silverware to eat with your food. I mean, so I says none of that. You don't get any of that now. I said we used to be able to go to the gate and wait for the plane to come in at the gate, you know. So oh, there's Donna Sue. So, I
She
mean,
said she loves you, great storyteller. There we go.
but
Her
I mean,
internet.
yeah, but I mean, things change. So I just hope that a lot of the restaurants I used to go to are still surviving.
I know that's part of it because a part of New York for me is going and getting the food, you know.
All day.
York City.
All day. All day. You ask people where to go. Where do I go to get a bagel? Oh, you got to go here. I want pastrami all right. Oh, you got to go over there. So it's just like, yeah, food. Love it.
So Donna Sue had another comment. Here we go. I wanted to talk to him about Seattle and how Seattle was built.
Seattle.
Yeah. I think maybe the reason why she wants to talk about that is because you were talking about the old Western towns and East. Yeah, I think that's what it was. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So
I have to look at that, 'cause the Pacific Northwest is very odd.
So you've been to New York City, of course, because you grew up there, and then you've been to Chicago. Who has the best pizza in your opinion?
2 different pizzas. I only eat New York style. New York style. I know people who swear by Chicago pizza, and I said that's because you never ate New York style. You eat Domino's or pizza. Ain't New York pizza. Get you a New York slice and you'll be all right.
She said he would be fascinated
With Seattle?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm going to research that. I might. That's one of the places I wanted to visit. Seattle and in Vancouver.
Yeah, I've been to Seattle plenty. It seems like I always go when it's raining, but I hear that a lot of people seem to get there.
It's always raining in Seattle.
Right. So I don't feel like I've been cheated. I feel like I've got the Seattle experience. But anyway, yeah, I really enjoy the fact that you take all the time in the work that you do to make it so detail oriented and you go so in depth. So one of the things that, talking to you today that I wanted to celebrate that about your character as a person, as well as your characters in your book. So and we have so many friends in common too, that all enjoy your work. And we all love you, because we all enjoy you. You always got the best stories, the best pictures on Facebook. So it's wonderful to follow that. And I always tease him. I say, I imagine you just smell really good. We've met in person before, and I can recollect. I'm pretty sure he smelled good. He always looks like he smells good. So I know the ladies watching. They're probably enjoying this. So anyway, I really appreciate this, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on, what's going on in your home city. I appreciate you telling us what you've got going on in the future. I want to say too that I've watched you and followed along with you, and you're always. I love the fact. I know this is a little off book subject, but your characters, that's something that's real important to me. And you always try to give the best of yourself. And, you are like everybody else. You feel, you get hurt like everybody else, but you just dust it off. And you're like, you know what? Yeah, I had a bad day, but you know what? Tomorrow's going to be better. You're always so positive. And I can always depend on you. And I don't want you to collapse under this pressure, but I can always depend on you to go, I've got bad days, but you know what? Let's get something done today. Let's do something. Some days I don't feel like doing crap. Mm-hmm. I'll be here a while. I'm like, yeah, we're doing something. Me and James, we're doing something today. I do appreciate that about you. So definitely.
Thank you so much.
Do you have social media that people can follow for updates on what you're doing?
Well, there's the JLN3 Next Level is a page on Facebook. They can follow that.
Okay.
And my Instagram page, which was New York King MD on Instagram. I'll post books, but I post a bunch of stuff that's uplifting for the
yes
on Instagram. But yeah, on Facebook it's definitely JLN3 Next Level, and every one of my books or the main characters has a Facebook page.
Oh, I did not realize that. Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know that. I
yeah.
missed that somehow. I got some following to do.
That's they all have pages. So anytime I make a new book within that series, I'll update that and I'll let
That's
people
really
know.
cool.
Alvina has her own page. Yep.
So you don't do the Twitter?
I do Twitter. I haven't been tweeting as much. I'll just send I'll just pay one of these folks out there to tweet about my books, and it'll go out to like 500,000 people.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
I do that, every once in a while. But I haven't been on Twitter in a minute.
Oh, really? You see, I'm not real good with Twitter. I'm not gonna lie, folks. I'm not good with Twitter. I'm not. Maybe it's just I never could get into it. I'd get on there and I'd follow people. Now I can follow people. I guess
Yeah,
I
I follow people. I retweet. But
that's what I retweet.
I just haven't had time to be on Twitter of late.
I feel like it takes a lot of energy and attention.
Yeah, I just haven't had time. But when I'm right there starting to promote my books, I'm on Twitter. I'm on all the social media feeds. So I'm all the way through there.
Now, what's Instagram? Oh, it was the Instagram page. Sorry. Yeah,
It's
correction.
so it's the same name for Instagram as in Twitter. It's NY King MD.
And what I'm doing right now, I'm actually going to put this in there for people. I'm going to put follow on Instagram. I'll put it in the comments, guys. And I'm going to put make sure I do it right. We don't want none of my typos because you know how that goes. You know me and my typos, don't you, James?
And the on Facebook, it's JLN3 Next Level Fiction.
And on Facebook, it is JLN3 Next Level. I'm pretty sure I followed that one. Just saying.
And then you can follow Robert Manis and
his beloved characters.
Yep, Robert Manis, Rachel Holt, Melvina. Each one of them has a page.
Okay, I'm gonna do.
There you go.
There. I'm gonna put Melvina and others on Facebook by their names. There we go. That way you guys can reference that. Let me fix my typos. One moment, please. And here it goes into the world for everyone to see. Hopefully I didn't miss my typos. But if you guys do try to follow something and we don't quite get it right, feel free to message me and I'll be happy to send back the correct information. I'll go ahead and I will let James back to his evening. I've already occupied plenty of his time. We hope to have James back sometime soon. So, James, thank you so much. Do you have any closing thoughts?
One closing thought would be, if you read Melvina and you like the content as far as family research, the best advice I can give you is to always start at the town, whatever town you know that your family is in now.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Began at. Okay, so if your father is from Detroit, then you'd start at Detroit. Okay, if your mother's from Tupelo, Mississippi, well, then you start there.
That's pretty cool.
You'd be amazed at the information you can get just at that local area. All the different newspapers and access to things. It's amazing. But everyone has a story, and I encourage everyone to seek out theirs. And then once you find it, tell it.
That's really good advice. That's definitely good advice, because even if you're not doing it to distribute to the masses, you got it for yourself and your family.
Got it for yourself. One day I'll tell you my story and you'll laugh because
will you come back on and tell us sometime?
Yeah, you'll love it. You'll die laughing. You'll die laughing. It's America for sure. I tell you.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate you so much. And so again, guys, in the comments, that's how you find James Lee Nathan's material, and you can follow his characters and reach out to him and find his work. So again, thank you, James. And I'm going to